I'm Libby Ulrich with NSAI Coffee Break, and we have the coolest girl in the world at NSAI today, Miss Jenna Paulette.
Hey,
how are you?
I am so good. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, I'm really happy you're here.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. It's going to be so much fun.
It is, for sure. So, reading a little bit about you,
Yes.
You're from Texas.
Mm-hmm.
You love to ranch.
Yes.
You have cow sense, which we'll talk about
Yes.
at some point.
I developed it at a very young age, so.
And you make beautiful music.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yes. From the Dallas area.
Yeah.
And for those of y'all that know Texas, you'll know where I'm talking about. For those of you that don't, I say the Dallas area because people are like, where's Louisville? So it's Louisville.
Okay.
Is where I pretty much grew up for most of my adolescence. I was born in Plano, and then we moved away for a few years from like 2nd grade to 5th grade, lived in California for a very short stint. I screamed, I can say y'all again, when my parents told us we were moving back to Texas. So, and then we moved to Louisville, and I was there until my parents literally just moved to McKinney, Texas, like 20 minutes away from where I grew up a year ago. So yeah, Texas is in my blood. And my family's kind of been there forever, since it was settled. So
How often do you go back to visit them?
a lot.
Yeah.
Really, I kind of struggled with the idea of moving to Nashville. So I tried to keep my foot in Texas for as long as I possibly could. So at first I was going back and forth from Texas to here and being in Nashville for a week out of every month, writing during that week, taking meetings, doing that whole thing. And then about 3 years ago, my husband and I decided to take the plunge and move here after a lot of reluctancy, because I was like, the other thing I want to do with my life is ranch and be a cowgirl. I just love it. So for me, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to do that if I move. And my uncle has made it really possible for me to do both things. So I fly home when we work calves and when we work the mamas in the fall, or anything big, branding, anything like that. And then usually I'm home for a lot of December. And then my sister, she is at the ranch pretty much every day in December while my uncle's out of town, and we just work it together in December. So it's kind of like I get the best of both worlds because of that. And everybody's been really cool with me being both places as much as I can possibly be. So I feel extremely blessed that nobody's like, oh, well, you're not here all the time, you can't be a part of it.
Well, and immediately I can tell that it really does feed that genuine sense that your brand gives off in your music.
Thank you.
And how you express yourself.
Thank you.
And so, can you describe the Texas music scene?
Yeah.
How that's different from Nashville,
Yeah.
and kind of the shift that you made when you moved here.
Yeah, so actually, when I was taking meetings with people when I first got here, people were like, so are you Texas country, or are you like Nashville commercial country? Because that's kind of the way that they see it. And I was like, well, my goal is commercial Nashville sort of country, but there's going to be aspects of Texas that come into what I do. And for me, that really just looks like traditional pedal steel being a huge part of my sound. I grew up loving George Strait, so it's like that part of things is going to be a part of it. But for me, I'm really kind of somewhere between like pop and like Western, so it's like this marriage of the two that doesn't, I try and keep the balance really, really good, because I don't want to go too one way or the other, because that perfect balance is really what makes me me and what I feel the most like myself when I'm singing it. And so, yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm like Texas country, because to me that's like really like grassroots sound that's like, it's very country and
You call it New West.
Yeah.
Which I've never heard that before used, and so it stuck out. It's me.
So funny, like the way that idea kind of came to me, because I was thinking, because people kept asking like, what's your sound, and I was actually driving to meet my friend's baby, and I was in the car and thinking through like all the things that kind of make me me, and the words New West popped into my head, and I was like, that's what it is. That's me in a nutshell, because I grew up loving the idea of the cowboy, because it became romantic to me, because I loved who my grandfather was and what he represented, and the feelings that the Dixie Chicks and George Strait kind of evoked in me as a person. But I also grew up in the Dallas area with pop music and big malls and radio stations where, you know, you're listening to like Kanye and Beyonce and all of these things. So both things did influence me. There's no two ways around it. And I really love both types of music for different reasons. But to me, the realness is in the Western side and the fun is in the pop side of things. So those two things kind of coming together were the New West to me. It's more of like an emotion that's expressed in the joining of those two sounds.
Can you talk about your favorite George Strait song?
Yeah. Gosh, how do you choose?
Yeah, I know, right?
I love Amarillo by Morning, of course. I love that. I love Fireman, like every time that comes on. But I think my favorite song of his is probably Troubadour. Because, I mean, I don't know. I think I cried the first time I heard it, which is so silly because you're like, oh my gosh, it's about a guy that like, or it's about him. It's about him riding in on a song and then like just all of the visual aspects of like what he represents. And he's so him to me.
That's kind of like your story too, you know, kind of evolving and kind of figuring out what the New West brand means to you personally.
Yeah, and I think that that's what George did so well. He figured out who he was, and then he stuck to it. And like, people fell in love with him because they understood who he was and they related to him so well. And you saw his smile, and it felt so real, you know. And I think a lot of successful artists that I look up to are the ones that have figured out who they are and how to portray that to their audience. And it's just a really important part of the step. And I think George, like, hats off to him. Like, he just did it so well. So.
And you wrote a song, what your first single was Coolest Girl in the World.
Yes, yeah.
What inspired that song? You wrote it with Jordan Reynolds.
Yes,
which we were talking about before, who's been on Coffee Break.
Yes, he's amazing.
He is.
Actually, Jordan and Sydney Cubit. And Sydney's kind of like new to the scene, but quickly growing her reputation. She's an amazing writer, like so stinking good. And we had written another song called Soundtrack to My Youth that I actually play at shows. And we had this idea in the song that was like, he makes me feel like the girls they sing about. And I was like, man, that's like a whole song in and of itself. And so I kind of like sat on that idea for a while, and then we had another write, and I was like, so I have this idea called Coolest Girl in the World, and it's about that idea from Soundtrack to My Youth. And she was like, oh my gosh, yes, let's write it. So we started writing it, and I brought it into my producers, Brad Hill and Lee Holland, and we were playing around with the song, and I had kept feeling like, man, that chorus doesn't lift the way I want it to. And so I called Jordan and was like, yo, Jay, what are you doing tonight? And he was like, nothing. What are you doing tonight? I was like, I have a song. I wrote it with Sydney, and I just can't figure out how to get this chorus to lift the way that I want it to. And he was like, yeah, come over, let's figure it out. So, 30 minutes go by because he's Jordan and he's just really, really brilliant. And he was like, yeah, just sing all the verses down the octave and sing the chorus up. And I was like, Jordan,
the answer to all your questions.
And then he helped rewrite a pre-chorus to the second the first verse and then the bridge. And so it just became what it was, and it was like the perfect combining of like right timing with him and the idea that Sid and I had, and it felt like I wanted it to. And then Brad and Lee, who produced it, were just like, yeah, this is a really good first release. It's upbeat, and I don't know, it's just a feel good song, and everybody loves feeling good. So yeah,
I feel good when I listen to it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like, I do too, and I'm not saying that cocky. I'm saying that because like I had a goal for how I want my music to make people feel, and like, to me, I don't want to put out anything that I don't like 100% believe in
and identify with.
Yes, yeah. And so when I got it back from mixing, I was like, oh man, yes, like it feels like I wanted it to, and that's the best feeling.
Can you dig a little deeper into the line that you worked on more with Jordan? Bringing the entire thing together.
Yeah, okay. So let me think through that pre-chorus.
So I'll sing it in our head. Silent, almost like silent disco.
Yeah, exactly. What song is she singing? because I see the way you love me when I play these songs on repeat. Really, like, that just kind of wrapped the whole idea up into, like, one line. And that's what it is all about. Like, I had mixtapes that guys would give me growing up that made me think, like, oh my gosh, somebody feels that way about me, or they wouldn't put this song on this mixtape, you know? And I think songs can sometimes communicate better than people can, because
definitely
they boil our ideas down, and we're like, oh man, when I don't know how to say it, I know a song does. And that line, I see the way you love me when I play these songs on repeat, is that, like, it just says it like it is. And Jordan came up with that, and it was just like, yeah, that's exactly what I want people to take away from it.
Exactly. And I love the line that says, I'm the me I want to be.
Yes. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Thank you. It's just like, when I hear those songs played back to me, where, like, I see, like, a part of a song and I'm like, man, I want to be that girl. And then somebody, like, gives you that song or sends you that song, and you're like, oh my gosh, somebody thinks I am that girl. I'm the me I want to be. And I could, like, walk into any room and feel like the coolest girl in the world because somebody feels that way about me. So yeah, thank you. I'm glad that line resonates with you too.
It does, most definitely.
Thank you.
And so when you were growing up and listening to country music or whatever other genre, who were some of the artists that you looked up to as the coolest women in the world?
Yeah, so Shania, for sure. I mean,
you know, she recorded in this building.
Holy ground. Like, I was obsessed with her. So two like very big memories for me. One being, so in Texas there are many family reunions, like, and I have family in West Texas, South Texas, Houston, Dallas, like, we're all over the place. And so we'd have Paulette family reunions every year.
Fun.
And we'd have them at this Indian lodge, which was so stinking cool. It had, like, a Wild West town in it. This is so Texas, it's ridiculous. But we would have matching t-shirts. And then my cousins and I would put on a talent show. And
no.
Yes.
And you sang,
and I sang Shania Twain songs. Yeah, it was awesome. I think there's videotape of it somewhere. I'm kind of embarrassed to see it, but
they should be uprooted at some point.
Yes, we need to do that. So that's one Shania memory. And then the other one is, like, maybe it was Thanksgiving or Super Bowl. It's probably Thanksgiving. It was definitely Thanksgiving. She did the halftime show for the Cowboys. And
I remember that.
I just remember sitting there, like, glued to the TV, like, what a performer. Like, she sucks you in, and you're like, she's jumping around on stage. She looks amazing. She sounds amazing. And I don't want to take my eyes off her. And I really admire that in a performer, and that's, like, goals for me as a performer. Also, I don't think she even played an instrument that entire halftime show. And for her to kick that much butt without playing an instrument, I'm like, golly, she's just so cool, you know.
She uses what she knows really well
too.
Oh,
yeah. So
to be Shania, a dream.
Yeah, a dream. We love you. So she's one of the coolest girls in the world to me. Yeah.
And you actually partnered with a campaign.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Yes.
With the song Coolest Girl in the World.
Yes. So Step Up is an organization that helps girls in under-resourced communities figure out what they want to do with their life and how to get into college. And most of these girls are girls that are the first in their family to even apply for college. One of the girls that I got to mentor in Dallas, like, her parents had been deported, so she's here in America as a U.S. citizen by herself.
Wow.
Has no guidance whatsoever. And this organization comes in to their high schools, teaches them how to identify what they want to do early, teaches them to be career focused early, and then teaches them how to apply for and get into college, which I just think is amazing, because I had that in my parents growing up. And I can't imagine not having somebody there for me who I looked up to teach me all about that whole process, because there's a million questions.
Or even the opportunity alone.
Yeah.
To be able to go to college and work on your dream.
Yes.
Whatever that may be.
Yeah, exactly. And my parents, they were like, you're going to college, first of all, to me. And so I was like, okay. And helped me figure out what I was good at. And then helped me figure out what I wanted to major in. and it's just nice to have a sounding board that like takes the time to know you. And like the women that are mentoring these girls like really take time to like listen to their interests and help them talk through options and figure out what kind of college they want to go to, which to me, like that's what you need. If you don't have somebody in your family to do that, it's nice to have somebody that you look up to outside of your family to help you figure out and focus on those things.
And you went to Savannah College of Arts and Design.
Yes, yeah.
Which is, did you go to the one in Atlanta?
Savannah.
Yes.
Actually,
Okay, Savannah.
Yeah,
oh, great.
Savannah.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I would have never like chosen to go there. It ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. But I was in a national musical my senior year of high school, and they scouted me at this performance I had, and then like offered me a scholarship. And my dad was like, I'm one of 4 kids, so my dad was like, you're going where the money is. And I was like, yes sir, I'm going to Savannah, Georgia, I guess. And that was so far away from home for me.
It is. That's 3 hours from my hometown.
Yes, yeah. It was like a 14-hour drive from Dallas. And I remember driving to go to school there and just thinking, oh man, like I could go home now. Like, I was talking to my mom because she was sitting in the front seat with me, and she was like, there's a reason you're here. There's a reason you're here. Just keep that in mind and give it a year before you decide that you want to go somewhere else. And I'm really glad that she did that, because I met my husband there and I got my degree in something that I would have never even figured out that I loved. I had a minor in music and started out doing performing arts there, but then I was like, I know I want to do country music, which is not necessarily like acting. And so I was like, what kind of degree would help me out in that area? And I found out that Kenny Chesney got his degree in, I think, marketing or advertising, something like that. So I was like, what's the closest thing I could get to that here at Savannah College of Art and Design? And so I got a degree in visual communications because I wanted to figure out how to
market myself. Talk more about that. I mean, I think that's awesome.
I think sitting in copywriting classes, which copywriters are people that write ads for different companies, they teach you how to communicate emotions and filter through ideas and then pick the best ones and then boil it down to say the thing that you want to communicate to your audience. And really that's what songwriting is too. And I
was gonna say, how did that translate into your songwriting and then the production side that you love so well too?
So I was like, well, I told all my teachers, I said, I know I want to do country music, so can I just apply all of these projects to country music? And they said yes. So I was like, this is awesome. So I would write copy for ads because that's what I had to do. But then the product side of things, I would make myself the product and then figure out how to position myself in the industry. And that's really when I started figuring out who I was. I don't think I fully boiled the whole idea down because it's really hard to define yourself, especially when you're like young and trying to figure things out. So I think it took a while.
There's a lot of growth through that.
Yes, and even like trial and error too. Like, oh, maybe that's not who I am, you know? And so there was like this, it helped me figure all of those things out and boil it down to the New West idea and who I actually am and what I actually feel 100% comfortable representing on stage. And then, the songwriting side of things, just the copywriting classes and all of that was really helpful with that. And then, like you said, the production side of things, figuring out how to represent the New West through sounds. It's like
the new and the old.
Yeah, the new and the old.
The pop and the country, everything that you love mixed with how to make it, how to modernize it.
Yeah, exactly. And so it just became a simpler thing because I got to go through that process. And I think it took just as long, but I think figuring out how to put that into words as an artist, it helped my producers. Like, they didn't have any questions going into the studio. They were like, oh my gosh, well, we need this guy to play pedal steel. We need Lalo, who's a really good track guy, to come in and do tracks. We need to do, X, Y, and Z. And when we were in the studio, everybody had a similar vision. So it was like, we had this clear-cut, like, path to go down all at the same time. There was no, like, me sitting in there going, oh gosh, I don't know if that's the right you know, guitar lick that guy just played, it didn't feel right to me, which I have done in the past. It was just all like we were all headed the same direction because there was a clear picture of where we were going, and that was a huge blessing, I think, for everybody, because it made it fun and creative, and not, we weren't trying to discover something.
Yeah. So how can a songwriter be best prepared for a co-writing session and for a production session when they're, you know, putting that song into a demo?
Yeah. So how can a songwriter be best prepared? Wait, can you repeat that one more time?
Yes, absolutely.
What am I saying?
So when a songwriter is going to a co-writing session and they're trying to channel that genuine voice of who their brand is, or even who the brand of the artist that they're writing for is, totally. How to best prep for that?
For me, going into songwriting sessions, trying to communicate who that was, I think it had more to do with figuring out who was like-minded with me. Like Sydney, for example, we write really well together, especially for my aesthetic, because she brings the pop vibe to it, but I bring the country side of things. So it's like her melodies and some of the lyric choices that she makes are what give it that pop edge. And then when I pull her back on some of the lyrics that she suggests, it comes across more country because I'm in the room. So it's like this balance, and we get each other. I've known her for since she was 14. She's only 19.
Wow.
Yeah, but she's amazing. And when we're together, it's like we both we channel my sound because it's the both of us, and we both kind of like make that balance come out. In other situations, like with Jordan, I had this idea. Actually, we wrote this song over Skype in like 30 minutes, like 3.5 years ago. It's crazy. That had this idea called Shooting Stars, and it wasn't about like making a wish on shooting stars. It's about this girl that wasted all of her wishes on this guy, and so she goes out and stands on the hood of her car shooting stars with a gun because she's so disappointed, right? So and we've all experienced
that's some great imagery there.
Jordan brought it home. Yeah. So I was very thankful. And I called him. I was like, hey, can you write this song for me? I have this idea. And he was like, yeah, it's a sweet idea. And we wrote it in like 30 minutes, but I think it's because that visual was there. And that's a very Western thing to say. I mean, just like think about like revolvers with like stars coming out of them. Yes. You know, that's what's going on in my mind. And to me, that's very New West. And then to paint a story like that and have that be a breakup song, and be able to just say, hey, this is the idea, and have somebody like Jordan, who's got like a very current commercial way of writing songs anyway, be able to drive the idea home. It's nice to just be able to trust somebody with the image that I have, you know, for a song, the visual. So I think finding people that get you,
and that you trust,
that
balance out those feelings or those emotions and songs that you're looking for to top it off.
That's exactly what it is. And then the production side of it, I think it's the same thing. I think meet with producers, and your gut's gonna tell you whether they're the right fit for you or not. Like when I met with Brad and Lee, Brad's he's got the commercial country thing like down to a T, and Lee brings in this very I don't know, just like slightly different like pop aspect of things, where like the two of those things together make it a different pop country, not just like run of the mill like get it out quick sort of thing. It was like very methodical, but it was because of both of them that goal was achieved. So I guess just finding the right team that kind of gets where you want to go, and that knows how to sonically like communicate that with people. And then being willing to say like, oh, that's not me. You know, if you hear something,
be able to speak up.
Yeah, exactly.
I read that growing up, you actually looked at the producers on your favorite albums.
Oh my gosh, yes, I did. Yeah.
Can you talk about some of those that you idolized, I guess?
Yeah. I was obsessed with Mark Bright and Jay Joyce, and like the brightness of Mark Bright. That's so weird. But sorry.
I mean,
it was the mixed quality on like his stuff with Carrie. Like there was so much going on, but you didn't miss a single thing. Like you could hear the little mandolin solo that's happening underneath a steel thing that's also with a big drum. I don't know. It was like unbelievable. And then the way her voice came through, I just thought he was so brilliant in like all the choices that they made. And then Jay, you have this like unbelievably cool sound that he created with Eric Church, and I was like, it's so epic while still having the sound be so focused down the middle. Like it just felt so big, even coming through just like my truck speakers or something like that. And
it's memorable.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, like the stuff he did on Tornado, and then everything Eric Church. I just thought it was so good. And I feel like those artists, they were artists, you know, like you got their vibe from their whole album, and it takes a producer that gets that to take an artist like that, and both of you guys look
and
really
speak
good.
their language through the entire album.
Yeah.
It all flows and goes together. And
yeah, like
nice.
Song to song. I mean, just amazing. So Jay, I was like geek out over his stuff. I just loved it. And then Frank Liddell is also just amazing to me. I just love what he did with Miranda. And I think they do a really good job of letting artists be themselves while making it bigger than life at the same time. So, yeah, love it.
Yes, the best.
Yeah.
Love it. You have a new single out that you released last week called ILYSM.
Yes.
Talk about that, and then, you know, what can we look forward to with your upcoming music?
Yeah, so ILYSM means I love you so much. For
Just
those that don't know. I've had like a few people, including my grandparents, text me and say, what is Elysium? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just love that he texted me and asked me that. It means I love you so much. And then I would like, you know, fill him in. But yeah, so that song was released last week. I think it's a really good balance of like both worlds that I come from. Just like you hear the pedal steel solo and you're like, dang, it's country, and then you hear that backbeat and you're like, oh, okay, I want to dance. And I want people to feel that way when they listen to it, to get both aspects out of it. Yeah, I wrote that song with Sydney again. Like, it's weird when you look at artists' albums, there's usually like a group of songwriters,
right, that they
develop their sound with. And I really feel like Sydney's one of those for me, and I'm really thankful because it's like we just clicked at the right time. She just moved to town, and I was one of the people that she knew here, and so I was like, heck yes, I'll write with you, you're so talented. People just didn't know who she was yet. And so anyway, she's one of those people in that group for me that's helped me kind of create my sound. And then yeah, we sat down to write that song in my apartment. I had like a bunch of the lines from the verses written when she got there, but I didn't know what direction, like how to like cap it all off and say one thing with it. And some of the like chorus stuff, we hadn't figured any of that out yet. And she pulled out the hook, ILYSM. She was like, I've been having this sitting on my phone for a few months, and I think this might be the right song for it. And I was like, yes, let's totally do that. And I think she sang the ILYSM baby part, and then we kind of worked backwards from there and wrote the whole chorus. And then the verses made more sense because we went back and kind of like readjusted all of that. We had a really rough work tape because neither one of us are like super guitar players, but the whole idea was there when I brought it in to Brad and Lee, and they were like, yeah, this is totally something that we have to cut. And I was like, I love to hear that. And I felt that way, but it's nice to have it confirmed by somebody. And then to have it come out the way that it did just made me really, really, really happy. Lalo came in and did the tracks on it, and he nailed it. And so I think it was just a really collaborative effort from everybody that made it what I wanted it to be. And thankful for that.
Excited.
Yeah, it's so much fun, and the music video comes out in a few weeks. So that's really fun.
I can't wait.
I can't either. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
I haven't seen like the rough or anything. I'm supposed to get it like today or tomorrow. And then hopefully some shows coming up. I was out on the road last month for a few weeks, and I just can't wait for that to be my every weekend, because I really enjoy the performing side of things.
Yeah, I can tell that.
Thank you. I can't wait. So hopefully that will be happening very, very soon.
And then do you have an album coming out at any point? When can we expect that?
I'm thinking probably fall. Okay. We don't have an exact date yet, but I'll probably release one more single, and then we'll probably do an EP after that. So probably single June, July, and then album probably like September, October. Yeah. Yeah.
Slow build.
Yes.
Is the best way to do it.
Yes. Yeah. Keep them wanting more, right?
Yes. So before we close this out.
Yeah.
When you're at home and you're in Texas and you're ranching.
Yeah.
You love cows.
Yes.
You mentioned that. And you mentioned you have cow sense, which your grandfather termed.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Okay. So
I have to know.
Yes. So it kind of goes along with the story. I was moving the cows with him from one pasture to another, and I was probably between 8 and 10 at this point, and I had always loved it, like been so drawn to ranching and to cattle and just the whole idea of it all. And it was probably late winter, early spring, and so we had a bunch of calves. And back in those days, it was, now we just let the calves come and find their moms if they stay in one of the pastures, because they'll figure out how to get to the food, you know, like they will. But back then it was like, we can't leave a single calf in one of the other pastures. So he had me jump off, and because we had been chasing this calf for what felt like an eternity to my little self, and he was like, just jump off and grab it. And so I was like, okay. So I jumped off of that four-wheeler, like figured out how to corral it into a corner, pushed it.
That takes some skill.
Well, I don't know. It just, like I said, cow sense. Yeah. I just figured out how to, I don't know, it was very natural to me to know what their next move was going to be, which is the cow sense thing. And then I just scooped it up and held it on the back of that four-wheeler until we found its mom and put it in the other pasture we were taking him to. And I remember him telling me after that, girl, you have cow sense. And I was like, thank you. That is the highest compliment I could ever receive, you know?
I feel like as you're describing this to me, it kind of reminds me of the process of writing a song.
Yes. Figure out, to know that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, and be able to
holding it till it's ready.
Yes, exactly. That's
great.
So funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think that stuck with me, and I wanted to develop it because, like, to me, like, having cow sense was like up here because I looked up to my grandfather so much and loved to watch him work.
So where can we find you on the internet?
Yes, so at Jenna Paulette for Instagram and Twitter. Look me up on Facebook, jennapaulette.com for my website. Sign up for the email list. You know, all the things.
We're so excited about what's ahead of you and your success. And thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Libby.
Cheers.
Yes, cheers.
See y'all.
And that
good stuff.
Fab. I am going to be drinking the rest of that before I leave. Oh, yes, but I can take this with me.
You can take this with you.